This is the instruction video for the survival loader in 410 gauge. It comes in a compact box, ideal for putting in your pocket, your backpack, or your bug out bag. It measures approximately 4 inches across, 3 inches wide, and about 1 inch deep, and contains all the components for the survival loading tool. When you open it up, the first thing you're going to see is the instruction sheet. The instruction sheet has all the information you need for step-by-step loading. It is printed on both sides and has color photographs. On the front, it identifies each of the tools. It gives you safety tips such as do not use a metal hammer. Also wear safety glasses. Also to measure each powder charge on a scale and use published load information out of some of the loading books. It also gives you your warranty and liability information. Read this completely before you start. It is not a replacement for this instruction video. To start with, I'm going to load 2 types of shells. One is the fiber or paper hull shell, which will have a roll crimp. This is a 3-inch shell. The other shell is what has now become more popular and common is the plastic shells. The hull is plastic, the base is some type of metal. And this one is a star crimp type of shell. One I will not resize and show you that process. The other I will resize and show you that process. Now it's important that you decide whether you want to size or not resize. For instance, if you have only one 410 firearm, such as a shotgun, and you fire this shell in that 410 shotgun, and you intend to fire again in that 410 shotgun, it's already sized to the chamber and you may not need to resize it. However, if you have multiple 410 firearms, such as a shotgun and one of the popular revolvers that's in 45 410, such as the Taurus Judge or the Smith & Wesson Governor, or if you intend to share this ammunition, then you may want to resize just to make sure it will fit each of the chambers. The first step will be the non-resizing. This is the base. It has 4 separate stations. On your instruction sheet, it tells you which one of these are station 1, 2, 3, and 4. Since we are not going to resize the case, we first need to get the primer out. So we will take the decapping rod, which has a pin on the end, which is beveled to a point. That point goes inside the hole of the primer itself and centers the pin and helps you knock it out. Now you'll notice I'm using a rawhide mallet. This is a 16 ounce. It's weighted with lead inside and it acts like a dead blow hammer. Again, do not use a steel hammer on your equipment or you will ruin your loading toolkit. A moderate tap, and out comes the primer. Now, if you have 10, 15, 20, 30 shells, you would do this process to all of them before proceeding. The next step is to reprime. We take a new primer and put it at station number 4. You'll see that in your instruction sheet. Place the shell casing over the primer. Take the size die. Now the size die has 2 ends. This is the sizing end, and this is the non-sizing end. It's slightly larger inside in diameter. It also has a knurl close to the end, so you can determine which it is. You put the non-sizing end down and over all the way onto the shell. With a moderate tap, you have now reprimed that case. Push it out. And you would do this to all of the cases before proceeding. Now before I proceed, I'm going to do the steps for resizing because once you get to this step, the process is the same for all of the shell casings. To resize, the base is some type of metal. Sometimes it's actually made out of brass, but most of the time it's steel with a coating on it. You need to lubricate it. So I have some dye lube or shell case lube on this rag and I rub it on the base. I now take the sizing end of the size die. I push the case in and it will not go in. Take it to the strike pad area, which is station number 1 in your instruction sheet. Give it a moderate tap to start it, and then harder taps to seat it all the way to the base. Now we have to get the primer out. Take your decap rod, insert it into the die, find the center hole in the primer, place it on station 2 to decap, and a moderate tap. Out comes the primer. We now have to remove the case, which has been forced up into the size die, before we can proceed. Leave the decap rod in, go to station number 3. This is where you will take out the shell casing. Place it over station number 3, a couple of moderate taps, and out comes the shell case. Next, we're going to prime this case. Again, we go to station 4, put the primer in the center, put your case over the top, and again, go to the non-sizing end, which will slip fit over the shell, and with a moderate tap, you've seated the primer. Now, the other benefit of station 4 is this. If when you resized, you didn't have it straight up and down and you put a bend in the rim or deformed the rim, at this station, if you hit it a little harder, it will straighten out any damage you've done to the case. And now we're ready to put in shot and crimp it and go from there. The first one I will do is going to be the 3-inch, because it has a roll crimp. What I like to do is use station number 3 on the base to hold it in place. I use the funnel. This curved end of the stem is ideal for slightly belling the case mouth. It's also perfect for putting in the powder. Now, I have different vials, and they have a pre-measured powder charge in them, and I take them with me, 10, 15, 25, whatever I need, so I don't have to have a scale. I use the funnel to put in my powder charge, remove the funnel. I now take what's called a over powder wad or a shot wad or a cup shot wad. The shot will fit down inside this wad, and when it goes down the barrel, the wad touches the side of your barrel metal and not the shot. Insert it into the case. Take the rounded end of the decap rod and use that to firmly seat the powder, charge, and wad together. Don't leave any gap. The next thing I'm going to do is load this as a buckshot load. Now, I know that this 3-inch case will hold 5 double-aught buck, a very potent load. And to make sure that it is fully seated, I use a decap rod, push down, and it went down about another 1/16 of an inch. I have space between here and the end of the shell. So I have to use what's called an overshot wad. Now, I make my own overshot wads. The instruction sheet will tell you how to get them, how to make them. Very, very easy. But because I have so much volume in here, and I already have my 1/2 ounce shot load, I need to take up that space. So I'm going to use, for this particular case, 2 overshot wads. I put the first one in, seat it with the end of the decap rod. I put the second one in, and again, seat it with the end of the decap pin. This is your primer start tool. It has 2 ends. One has a groove on it, and one does not. It's completely smooth. The grooved end will start to form the crimp, making it about halfway closed into a ball shape. Insert the shell in, push, and rotate. As you can see, it's about halfway closed. That's exactly what you're looking for. On the other end, it's squared off. This completes pushing the crimp down. Push it in, rotate it, and now the crimp has been somewhat flattened, but you are not done. This is going to be a roll crimp. To complete the crimp, take the non-sizing end of your size die, slide in the shell casing, hold it in place, take a tool called the Crimp set tool. This is going to set your crimp. Push it in. You might have heard it click. Push out. And you have an almost perfect crimp, a roll crimp, which are very effective and easy to make. That said, on the plastic hull cases, making a roll crimp is almost impossible by hand without using a specialty tool that they sell, and you have to use that in conjunction with an electric drill, all of which you will not have if you're out in the wilderness or a campsite. Now this is a plastic hull, plastic shell. We've already sized it, we've already primed it. You'll notice that it is a star crimp. That means that it's going to have either 6 or 8 of these little star fingers that spread out when it's fired. The first thing we have to do is slightly bevel the case mouth. We do that by using the funnel. Don't go too far or you will split the end of the case. We can still use it by using what's called a hybrid crimp, and I will show you how to do that shortly. I put it in station 3 to hold it. I take my pre-measured powder charge. I dump it into the case. I take the funnel away, and again, I'm using this particular wad. Again, there are many different kinds of wads with different volume that change the internal volume of the case, but for this one, I know what load I am making, so become familiar with your brand that you're going to be using. I insert the wad, I push it down with the decap rod, and firmly seat it on top of the powder charge. So the powder and the wad are now seated, there is no gap. Now this case is shorter. So I know from loading this before that this will take only 4 double-aught buck. And that's still a formidable load, since when you think about it, a 12 gauge, depending on manufacturer, holds either 9 or 8. Push it down to make sure it seats. And if you heard that, it had about a 1/16 of an inch to go deeper into the wad. Now in this case, I know from loading that I only need 1 Overshot Wad. So I'm going to place that in the case and seat it. Now it's time to crimp. As the other case, I take the crimp form tool, the grooved end, I push it in, I rotate it, and it closes the case about 50% of the way, which is exactly what you want. Turn it over, push it in, and it almost closes the case entirely. Take the non-sizing end of the size die, slide your case in, hold it in place, take the crimp set tool, push it in, and if you want to get a really nice star crimp so you can impress your friends, push it in and check it. Need a little bit more, push it in and check it. And there's a fairly nice star crimp. But what I like to do is what's called a hybrid star crimp, so I don't have to keep checking or rechecking. I just simply push it in to begin with, and it's almost like I'm going to make a star crimp, but it won't let you do it. It'll only go about halfway. Push it in all the way, rotate it, push it out, and I've got a very nice deep crimp. Sometimes you'll be able to see the wad, which is not a problem, because if you can see the wad, I use different color wads. It can tell me if I've got a buckshot load, or if I'm using an orange wad, it tells me if I've got a shot load, or if I'm using a black wad, it'll tell me if that is loaded with a slug.